One. Good morning, everybody, on this hopefully sunny Wednesday morning, wherever you are, 21st of April, 2021, and welcome to the Retail Bulletin, the first of today's two webinars, adapting your 2021 digital marketing strategy. How are purpose-driven brands putting content at the heart of future digital success? A very big title, but lots of things to discuss in this mid-pandemic world that we're living in. I'm Darren Williams. I'll be your moderator for the session today. I'm the MD of Williams Harding Consulting and the chair of the men's skincare brand Scrubbed. Delighted to be here with you today and talking all things digital marketing. Just to warn you, my dog is at home with me today. She may or may not make an appearance. She has been known to do that in some of these sessions. She's called Scamp and she may or may not behave herself. So we'll find out as the sessions go on. People that will behave themselves, I'm sure, and bring a lot to the session are our panelists today. And I'm going to introduce them now, if I may, and ask them to tell you a little bit about themselves. And then we can kick off with the session proper. So firstly, if I may come to you, Louis, if you'd like to say hi and introduce yourself, please.
Hello, so good morning, everyone. So first of all, I'd like to thank the Retail Bulletin for the invitation, and of course to all of you. God knows where in this world, seeing this webinar. So my name is Luís Fernandes. I'm Portuguese, but I work and live for the past 12 years in Madrid. I'm the commercial director of a company called Carpisa Foods. We are, as the name says, a food company specialized in meat, and we are the concretely in the beef section. So we are the suppliers of guys like Burger King, for example. Okay. So before that, I was 12 years in a company called Campo that is a processed meat company, part of a $15 billion company called Alpha. Is a Mexican origin company. And then before that, I was 12 years in P&G, so in Procter & Gamble, in Portugal, working mainly in sales and shopper and consumer marketing. Okay, so I'm delighted to be here.
And thank you for being here, Louis, as well. Louis is actually coming to us from Madrid today as well. So welcome and thank you for joining us. Next on the list, Nick, tell us about you. Morning, sir.
Hi, thank you, Darren. So I'm Nick, I'm from Belgium. I started my career 8 years ago at Decathlon. It's a rather known sports retail company, originated from France. I was responsible there for the e-commerce in Belgium, for the sports nutrition department. And then I moved over to United Sports Brands. It's also in Belgium. It's a collection of sporting brands. Here I'm also responsible for the e-commerce and everything that connects our e-commerce to external partners and platforms.
Welcome to the panel, Nick. And Nick is joining us from Belgium this morning. I can't remember the name of the city where you are. I'm sorry.
The city is called Antwerp.
Good morning, Antwerp, as they say. So yeah, thank you for joining us this morning, Nick. And our next panelist is also, thank you very much indeed, our headline sponsor for this event as well, from Canto. Thanks for that, Michael. Thanks for sponsoring and for appearing today as well. Tell us about you.
Thank you, Darren. Yeah, thank you for having us. And so my name's Mike. I'm from the UK originally, and you probably wouldn't expect it, but I actually started my career in the Metropolitan Police in London. So not your standard kind of background, but I worked in the police for many years and then actually transitioned over into procurement in the charity sector for the RSPCA. And then I actually made the move over to Berlin. So I moved from the UK, went over to Berlin. I've given Brits a horrendous name for our shocking language skills in Berlin ever since, but they put up with me, and transitioned into sales. So I've been working in SaaS sales for several years now, and currently at Canto, where we provide digital asset management solutions for companies all over the world. So
how is your German then, Michael?
Next question, please.
Okay, good stuff. How's the transition been since the Brexit period? Have you had to apply for settled status as people have done in the UK if they're living here?
Yeah, so there was, as you would expect in Germany, there's a bit of paperwork, a bit of bureaucracy, but we've got through it. So I think the majority of people I know for the Brits that have come over, we've all had our appointments, and we've got kind of a residence permit now, sort of for the next like 10 years or so on. So it's pretty painless. There was more kind of doubt before it happened, but actually now that everything's now taken place, it's actually okay. So
good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Right, so we bring you an international crowd this morning. UK, Spain, Belgium, Germany. What more could you want for on a sunny Wednesday? So thank you guys, and thank you to our panelists. We're going to kick off. I mean, critical to generating engagement is brand voice, brand content, all of those things that build up to inspiring action and, importantly, sales, purchases. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to really kind of explore channels and content formats that need to be considered in a modern retail marketing strategy, and not just post-pandemic. We're in pandemic still as well. I've always personally thought this was a 2-year thing at least. So I kind of feel personally we're halfway through. So whilst people are bravely talking about post-pandemic, and it's great to be in that mindset, I think we also need to be mindful that we're still in pandemic as well. And so we'll explore some of that today. And we're going to kick off then with the questions. And please, audience, do get involved. We generally have great levels of engagement of questions and answers. So you will see, depending on the device you're using, at the top or the bottom of your screen, there'll be a Q&A button. I'll monitor that regularly, and you may have a particular question that you want to ask for a specific panelist, or it may be a general question that you'd like all of our panel to answer. But please do get involved. And my job as the moderator is to make sure that everyone gets heard. And so if you ask a question, we will commit to answering it. So in the meantime, I'm going to go to you first, Louis, if I may, over in Madrid, and really ask you about your e-commerce strategy because of the pandemic. You know, has it changed? What have your learnings been from the past year? And how is it shaping your marketing plan going forward?
I mean, as I said in my introduction, the company I'm working for, we are mainly, traditionally, a B2B company. Okay, so B2B company, to be more specific, the biggest part of our business is actually food service, and especially restaurants. Okay, so, and as you can imagine, on mid-March last year, out of the sudden, we got all our main business, most of our customers shut down from one day to the other. So it was something that it was completely unthinkable, you know, I mean, ever. So what this required from all of us, okay, it was to engage the whole organization. I'm going to say the whole organization, from the senior management till, I mean, the bottom, starting with R&D, starting with production, quality, I mean, and of course, within my team, commercial and marketing, to compete, in our case, to speed up the plans that we had, that is to start entering in a much more decisive way in the retail business, okay, which is, I mean, it might seem quite easy to say it, it's much harder to do, okay? So what we did, it was in a record time to do, I would say, a textbook exercise, that is but to bring it to life, that is to understand, I mean, which are our biggest capabilities as a company, okay, which is our strengths as a company, what do we know how to do best, you know, to understand what is in the market in terms of retail, to understand what it's the needs and what the shopper, the consumer is actually asking for, that it's not in the market, and sometimes it's not that obvious. So, and especially in a pandemic way, so all of these surveys were done, of course, online, and not in these typical focus groups, you know, like we used to do and we like to do, you know. So, and we came up with, I would say, 3+1 projects. The first one that we actually managed to bring into life last year, you know. And I mean, since I'm a sales guy, I'd like to show So we are like launching. We launched last October. This is a full range of ready to hit burgers. Okay, so in 90 seconds you have a great burger to eat at your home. Okay, just put it in the microwave. And I mean, we launched end October. We took like 3.5 months to reach 100,000 sold. We get like 2 months is more to get to 500,000, and probably mid and next month we'll get to 1 million. And our forecast is to get like to 1 million per month in less than 1 year. Okay, so things are actually booming. I mean, it's like to launch something that I mean, to use like common sense and to launch a thing that makes sense at a given moment. Okay, so we have 3 more projects. One that we are right now presenting to the trades. One more that we'll start presenting either right before summer or in the middle of the summer, mid and summer. So answer to your question, it was like basically to shift the gear, you know, towards the retail, to understand the shopper, to understand the tools that we had to understand the shopper, understand the market, and to make it happen internally, you know. And I think this is the good thing of working in a smaller company, you know, a private-owned family company, that in the end the things are decided and are done with speed. Okay, and this is fundamental in these days, of course.
So hold up the 90-second burger again. Show me.
No, it's. I mean, since I blurred my end, I don't know if you can actually.
Right.
See.
Yeah. So was that developed deliberately in the for the pandemic? Yeah.
Wait, let me change here the. If I take here none. Maybe.
There's a burger moment happening here somewhere, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, I was trying to get the.
So was it developed for the pandemic?
I mean, it was developed. I mean, we are a burger company. Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah.
It was to take what we know.
But that particular product.
No, I mean, of course, in a moment that supermarkets are boosting their sales and restaurants are either closed or working exclusively with home delivery and takeaway, which in most of the cases is a very, very small part of their business, even with these Uber Eats and Deliveroo and all these guys, you know. So it was clearly the right product for the right moment for the retail channel. Okay, so and I mean it was, I mean, it went away beyond our best expectations. So we are right now in all the gas stations in the country. We're in all the hypermarket chains, all the supermarket. I mean, so it's with a few exceptions, you know, like some specific guys like Lidl or Aldi. I mean, we are in basically everywhere, okay? Because it was a product that didn't exist in the market, and it's like a thing, the right product for the right moment. And yes, I mean, we had it, we had start shaping up the project, but we concluded during pandemic and we implemented during pandemic.
Interesting. The reason I asked was because you know, I thought with people spending more time at home, some of that kind of 90 seconds in the microwave convenience food may have slowed down a bit in sales, and people were spending more time, you know, cooking with fresh ingredients and so on. So that's really interesting. I mean, great success story as well.
You had, I don't know, you had it in the UK and other markets, but here in Spain you had different waves and of the pandemic with different influence on the shopper and on the consumer, you know. I mean, I believe that one thing that you had it all over, it was the race for the toilet paper that happened everywhere, you know. And then of course here people start as well looking for flour and all the things to bake at home. But on the other hand, people were as well working, you know, was working at home, having all kinds of this kind of video meetings, you know, and sometimes with kids at home. So I mean, this was as well a fairly good, fast and tasty solution for the needs, you know. And hopefully it will persist in time. And so far, so good.
Well, who knew? Thank you for sharing that example with us, Louis. I will come back to you shortly as well. Nick, over to Antwerp, if I may. Good morning. we're talking about evolution of e-commerce strategies, because of the pandemic. What have your learnings been over the past 12 months or so, and how's that shaping your content plan moving forward?
Yeah, so at the start of the pandemic, it was for us total chaos because we sell sports gear, and as most of the team sports shut down, our planning got obviously destroyed, because normally we plan 6 months in advance of the sporting seasons. And when the pandemic hit and all the events got canceled, we had to refocus what products we were going to advertise. So we went from team sports to sports like running. We also saw a rise in inline skating and skateboarding again. So more of the sports that you do with one person or two person became big instantly. So we had to scrap our plans, of course, and we did weekly meetings, and we executed for our content right after the meeting instead of 6 months in advance.
Right.
That was, I guess, the biggest challenge for us, was to scrap our plans and not look for historical data too much in our sales, and go with the flow, actually. That's also when we launched our face mask specifically for sports, and we started advertising on that, and it was pretty successful, even though we had no plans for it in advance.
Yeah, that whole face mask market explosion was something that many retailers obviously tapped into as well, and some more successfully than others. How many products did you develop? How many did you bring to market?
We actually only had one version, but we shipped it in different colors and different patterns. So like a black and white version, but also in more like navy type of patterns and stuff. And we shipped those to Amazon, where it did pretty well. But as you know, and Louis also said it a few minutes ago, the whole market started focusing on more essential products. So toilet paper and other products. So we even got an email from Amazon telling us that they were not allowing us to ship anymore, because they prepared more space for the more essential products. So even our online sales plummeted for maybe a month or two because of that reason.
Yeah, what makes them more? So what makes the product more sport friendly? Is it the way that is it the mesh or the different breathability?
Yeah, exactly. It's more breathable, and also instead of going behind the ear, it goes behind the head. So it's like 2 strands behind the head, so it stays on more comfortably. There's no like shaving behind the ear for wearing it a longer time. It also has a replaceable filter that you can wash out instead of having something to throw away after a few uses.
Yeah, it's become the new litter around London for sure. Now everywhere you walk, you see discarded face masks with all types of variety laying everywhere amongst the crisp packets. So yeah, a reminder of that new world that we're all living in now as well. Did you find as well, Nick, that it sharpened the speed at which you and the team had to act? A lot of people say to me that it's kind of one of the silver linings of the pandemic has been the way that it's forced them to just have to move so much faster. Was that the experience for you and your team as well?
Oh, for sure. Normally we take our decisions with very much attention to detail, but now there was no room for that. We had to execute immediately and go for weekly sales numbers and make decisions based on that instead of historical data. So yeah, I think lots of people are kind of drawing that out as one of the benefits, if you like, if there is such a word that's appropriate to a pandemic, of the way it's forced them to work differently. Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you, Nick. Come back to you shortly. Over to Berlin, Michael. Good morning again. You speak to lots of different retail marketing teams in your work at Canto. What are the greatest pressures that retailers are telling you that they're facing when it comes to creating, managing, sharing content? What are they factoring into their planning?
I would say one of the key things we hear is normally content's all over the place. It's not always consistently in one kind of single source of truth. So it could be, and also whether that's to by department, by region, that people are using different systems. Some might be using like a SharePoint, a server, a DAM system, or another tool to manage that, whereas others don't. So it's not always consistent. So I'd say that probably the first key thing would be like collaboration. So having that constant stream of like good quality content, both for kind of internal people, but also agencies and anyone external that they're also working with. So especially probably even more so post with COVID is the fact that since everyone's working remotely, you need to get everyone working in a similar way and collaborating effectively and efficiently. I think also on the marketing side with content, ROI. Such an important thing. It's always going to be, you want to be repurposing content, reusing it. So many times I think there'll be content that's already there, but others may not know about it. So it's being able to get the benefits of that and not duplicate efforts, I would say, time and time again. So I think that's another significant factor. Also the volume. I guess people have so much content is another factor. So in terms of actually organizing that, being able to find it quickly, searching, I guess, metadata to actually tag and access content in a quick and efficient way is critical, I would say. And even some of the AI aspects of that, we see a lot more sort of requests coming in now where people want AI assistance like smart tagging, facial recognition, and just be able to find things with kind of minimal effort in a fast way.
Is that because they are wanting to stand out in a sea of content? Yeah.
I think volume's critical. Just so much content. Basically everyone we deal with, they've got this sea of content, and it's just trying to filter through, find what's relevant quickly.
I think it's quite bamboozling for consumers as well, right? Because we're just receiving, on countless mailing lists and follow various people on social and so on, and there's just so much coming at me. How do retailers stand out? How do they cut through to consumers and get that message across in all of that noise and kind of win through?
Yeah, I think there's a few ways. I think making it easy to access is probably critical as well. Not making it too difficult for people to go in, find that content quickly, and not have to spend a long time searching in order to access it. Additionally, I would say that there's also been that shift in the type of content. I think we definitely see more video content. We often hear of like when there's products. So since people can't go to a showroom or actually visit so easily in person, they want to kind of have that experience enhanced by receiving, videos, additional sort of documents, images, and as much as possible, really, to try and enhance that experience without being able to go in person and actually physically touch it and see it.
Yeah, it's noisy out there for sure. And is there? I mean, it's a slight segue off the question, but is there something else retailers should now be doing? This is a UK specific example, but is there something that the retailers should now be doing now that the sort of shops have reopened last week? Is there a different way they should be reaching or getting their message out there now that stores are back and they're kind of all channels are open again?
I think brand consistent, keeping it consistent, keeping everything in line with the brand, and I think it's easier with that volume as well. That there could easy sort of errors could take place. You just got to keep everything consistent along those kind of brand guidelines, and just again, repurposing, reusing, and not having to start from scratch again. I think in some ways actually the demand and in terms of sort of digital asset management has actually has grown during the pandemic. I think people have realized the need is there to organize, whereas before it was maybe just a want. It's now kind of a need. They actually need to really take control of this and organize their content effectively.
One of the things I thought was a lost opportunity in lockdown was to still, obviously all stores are closed. One of the things I thought that could have been done better, and I'm interested on anyone's views, is actually still using the stores as a brand window. So, when the shutters came down, I think London went into tier 4 on the 18th of December from memory. the shutters literally came down. And so as of 2 weeks ago, I was still seeing Christmas windows, you know, on Oxford Street, on Ken High Street, on King's Road, all of these really premium London destinations. Retailers just shut their stores down and then left their windows as if there'd been an apocalypse kind of thing, you know, like, was that a lost opportunity? Could retailers have still used their windows for messaging during the pandemic, do you think? Anyone's view. I'm happy to take a call on that. I mean, I could be being completely unrealistic, and actually it was just easier to keep them mothballed, but I just felt they should still be used as a message base.
Yeah,
Anyone?
I think so. It's also dependent on what kind of store you are. If you have your own online shop, for example, you could also advertise that for a bit. But if it's, in our case, we don't have our own stores. We sell with partners. It's very difficult to communicate during those times. If they are closed, then they're probably not working and not open to communicate with us what they could do about this. So
yeah, I just thought surely there must be some teams still working, not all furloughed, that could have potentially been the team that, even in high profile sites, that just did a better job at kind of keeping their windows up to date, fresh, on message, and so it was sort of consistent with the online channel as well. So, you know, Christmas literally only got cleared 2 weeks ago in a number of stores and some very high profile sites. So anyway, I could be being completely unreasonable. What do our audience think? We've had no Q&A so far, but if you think I'm off the mark there and actually retailers should have just left their stores as they were post-Christmas, do let me know your views. Always happy to have an opposing view. Louis, I'm going to come back to you, if I may.
Yeah,
sorry.
I was just going to tell you just one answer to your question. I think that you had, during this pandemic, 2-3 types of people. You know, one that clearly adapted and changed and made the difference, and then you have people that continue, or at least try to continue to do the same, and the third type that blocked. Okay, and I think, answering to your question, this could have been a good way of adapting and doing something different that actually would make the difference, you know, and not only for the chain but as well for the overall aspect of the city, and in the end to be able to make it nicer to everybody, you know, somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I think similar to the point I made earlier about, you know, retailers saying that it's forced their teams to think differently. You know, retail was already in pretty troubled waters pre-pandemic, you know, and it had been this consistent year-on-year decimation in some high streets, particularly some of the more regional high streets. And so again, the pandemic is forcing retailers to do a complete pivot of what they were thinking their plan was, and get better faster. Because if they don't, you know, they just won't survive. And I think we're already seeing some examples of that. Louis, staying with you, what are the most relevant online tools in your digital marketing strategy?
I mean, following my logic a couple of minutes ago, and since we are entering in this fascinating world of retail and the shopper and the consumer, you know, with our brands, as you can imagine, our main goal, our main objective is to attract people to our franchising, to our brands. Okay, so I would say that right now we are using 3 different types of tools. Okay, so the first one that we didn't have, I mean, which might seem surprising, but we didn't have a brand as such. So the first one was actually to create our own website for our brand, you know, that is a recently launched brand, of course, in line with the character, the look and feel, and what we wanted to transmit with the brand, the values of the brand. Then the second one, to attract people, clearly we are working a lot in social networks. Okay, and again, I mean, please understand all of this in the context of a brand, recently launched brand. Okay, so it's not like any brand for 20 years that in the end it's obliged to, I mean, to look for something different and much more, you know, sophisticated. We are giving the first steps. Okay, so, and these first steps, yeah, I mean, considering our targets, so So first Instagram, that for us is fundamental, and we have been working. We have our own community manager actually feeding permanently the Instagram for our target. Then we have, of course, Facebook for an older target, Twitter as well. I mean, we are still not in these TikToks and all these brand new ones, but I mean, we have plans to get to there. But I mean, and in parallel, what we are doing is lots of activations. Okay, using the social networks, but not only, using as well our media agency, you know, to always bring something, you know, that will bring the people to our social networks. And everything that we are doing is like to try to increase the base of the people we are entering, and they're more or less regularly visiting our Instagram, Twitters, Facebooks, and so on. And the third one is, of course, the online shops of our key customers. Okay, what we have been doing is to distinguish the kind of promotions that we'll do in the bricks and mortar store to the ones that we do out of the shop, out of the physical store, you know. And we have been quite active in this sense, you know, to bring novelties for our customers, to help our customers as well to sell more of our products. So sort of a win-win approach.
Thanks, Louis. Nick, coming on to you. With you've already mentioned Amazon, for example, but you sell your products through loads of different distributors and lots of different markets. How do you keep that brand experience consistent through products and marketing when it's spread so widely through different tentacles and regions?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. At the start, we had some issues with that because we rebranded our biggest brand. So we made a new logo and new slogan. And we saw when we changed that a lot of our partners still used the old logo, still used old product images. So the best thing we did from there was we installed a small asset manager on our B2B shop. So every customer has their own login, right, where they can place orders. But then they could also download assets. So our logo, brand guidelines, font types. But as we acquired more and more brands, and we had, as you said, more and more content, the amount of content right now is through the roof. So it became difficult to follow this up easily. And that's when we were looking for a dam. And it's funny because someone from Canto is here, but we now use Canto to ensure that we can spread all this content and our brand guidelines and logos efficiently without having to look through too many folders on a website that's not really made for this purpose. So that's
collaboration between panelists there. Excellent. How many countries are you in, Nick? Roughly, a rough idea.
Oh, well, we service full Europe, but our main countries for me is the countries around us, so Belgium, Netherlands, UK, France. Yeah. And
do you in terms of content strategy, do you have a level of dictation to your retail partners and markets, or do you collaborate with them, or do you sometimes just let them roll with it?
Yeah, it's most of the time it's a collaboration. So we don't like it when they try to do everything without notifying us. We like to keep control of it, just to make sure that there is brand consistency and if there is a level of professionality behind the assets that are being created.
Thank you, sir. Michael, coming back to you, if I may, in Berlin. Obviously, as you see a lot of different retailers, what sort of content trends are you seeing? You know, we're talking about this need to stand out in this competitive environment. Any trends that you would call out?
Yeah, I think with the big sort of online presence, it's consistency in terms of like photography, all of the brand assets. Really, it's trying to keep that consistent across the different sort of product ranges and brands that they have. Ultimately, they want to keep that similar. So we've also seen a bit of a shift in terms of how they would distribute that content. So a lot of the retailers would try to make sure that all the different regions, if they've got, for example, a UK retailer that may have offices in Hong Kong, Singapore, and so on, and all the rest of Europe, they're trying to ensure that all of those teams are following in line with exactly the same content and with the same sort of brand guidelines enabled as well. Additionally, as we mentioned earlier, we see like in food and drink and in various other industries where the video content side, we mentioned the sort of showroom example earlier. I think that's been huge. When we look at the intake in terms of the file types that people are adding into our solution, that video side of things really has scaled up unbelievably. That's transformed and pretty much in line with the pandemic. It already was increasing before that a little bit, but then it just sort of, rocketed up from that point on. So that's also been pretty significant.
And I guess if retailers don't do some of this activity, they're just going to get left behind even more than they were before, right?
Absolutely. There's so much competition in there. I'm sure Nick would be able to say it's such a competitive landscape, I guess, and probably even exacerbated with the pandemic. That absolutely, I think it's going to be critical.
Yeah, it's fascinating times. As I said, it was fascinating already, and it's just been made, acutely more intense and urgent on the back of everything that the world has been through over the last 12, 13 months or longer. Our audience is very quiet today, so we still have no Q&A, but the good news is that we have slightly grown our audience since we started the webinar. So something's working, guys. So congratulations on that point, at least. We have been talking for quite a while already now. So audience, this is going to be one of your final shouts soon. So if you do have any Q&A, get it on the board as quickly as you can, because I'm going to start going through. And as I say that, someone's just done it. Let's have a look. This is a question to all. I was just going to say a 5-minute shout for your questions, as we are going to start looking to wrap things up in the next 5 to 10 minutes. But this is a question in from Martin. Thank you, Martin, whoever you are. Much appreciated. And it's a question to all of you. So listen carefully, gentlemen. I'll start with you, Louis, and then we'll work around all of you. So many brands have historically worked in predictable marketplaces and are consumer insight led from past trends. How have you transitioned in and kept consistent in decision making when you need to react fast and adjust by your gut feel? So just to summarize again, brands that have historically worked in predictable marketplaces and have always worked from past trends are now having to transition and act faster, keep consistent in decision making, but do it all by gut feel. Hopefully I've managed to relay Martin's question correctly. Louis, any thoughts on that?
I mean, personally, I believe a lot in gut feeling and especially in common sense. Okay, and I think that lots of times in even in huge organizations, the lack of common sense is excruciating. Okay, so I mean, I don't want to repeat myself, but in our case, yes, we're launching something from scratch. Okay, so no, we didn't have so much data, and we had to believe in and to trust, in our experience, in our, again, common sense and our gut feeling. Okay, and so far, like I was saying, so far so good. Trying to think it over of my past experiences. I mean, I would say that especially in some areas from my previous company that are working a lot selling these daily products on the counter, where people, they don't want to go to a store and see people touching the things, and slicing the things in front of them. I believe that they can be, or surely they are facing quite a change in this paradigm. Okay, I
love that line. Louis, I'm going to use that all day. The lack of common sense is excruciating. And I think I can think of a number of examples that I could apply.
I mean, if you want, I can be here a couple of hours giving you some funny examples.
Yeah, there's business and personal examples I can definitely apply that sentence to. Nick, your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with Louis. There's also, even though you have that you can't rely on historical data, you actually still can, because after a while, after analyzing data for a few months, you kind of see a trend in it. So even if there's chaos or events that are out of your reach, I think you can still take away some points from historical data, even if events happen that are out of your control. And besides that, yeah, but that's the logical part of just knowing our consumers, even if times go bad.
And Martin, your views as well? Michael, sorry, Martin. Michael, your views. I don't know who Martin is, no idea. Michael, your
common
views.
sense. Yeah. Yeah, so from my point, I mean, I agree completely with Nick and Louis. I think that makes complete sense. And from our side, I mean, not necessarily retail, but as a software company, sort of navigating through the pandemic, I think it's been more. I mean, obviously, we look at the historical side of things, but there's been such a shift. Whereas there's certain industries where we would particularly be providing solutions to, such as tourism, travel, and so on, which haven't been been hit very hard with the pandemic. Whereas for us, it's been more about sort of digital transformation, more about education, I think, about the benefits, rather than creating something completely new based on the pandemic. Yep.
Thanks for that. And thank you, Martin. That was the question person. Thank you for your question. And I hope the panel has answered that well for you. 3 very compelling answers there. Thank you, gents. And just as I was asking for questions, another one's come in. And I'm going to use this question to close, if I may. We're almost 45 minutes into the webinar. So I'm going to use this as our closer. And it's around user-generated content. So how to encourage it, share it and interact with it. This is from a TRB guest, so an anonymous question asker. So thank you, whoever you are. So yeah, any thoughts on user-generated content, how to encourage it, share it and interact with it? Louis, over to you for your final answer.
I mean, like I was telling you a while ago, I think that if you want to, I mean, if I understood correctly the question, if you want to bring, like in our case, new users into our, in this case, in our social networks, I mean, there is no, like you guys in England said, there is no such thing as a freelance. So you have to give something, you have to offer something, you have to give something to attract the consumers and the shoppers. I mean, there is no shortcuts. Okay, so and this is what we are trying to do. I mean, of course, we are trying to think a little more long term, so not only to attract, but as well to try to retain, But I mean, we know that loyalty, when we talk about consumers, it's not that easy. So I think that the only solution is to keep bringing new proposals that the consumer might engage in, and to keep attracting, is the only way. I mean, to keep offering something that it's important that the consumer actually treasures and engages in that. So how I see it.
Thank you, Louis, and thank you for your time on the panel today as well, and for your contribution to the subject matter as well. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Nick, user-generated content, encourage it, share it, interact with it. How do you do it?
Yeah, I think user-generated content is becoming more and more important, because they're becoming a small part of your sales team, actually. So the way we encourage it is by making it easy for a user to make user-generated content. So, for example, if a user purchases something from our webshop, after a day or 2 or 3, they will receive a small form where they can answer or reply or let a review for this product without having to first log onto a website. So the process of making it very easy for the customer to leave a comment or leave a reply about the product is for us essential. And we have seen pretty good results on this, actually, for our sales. So we noticed that the more user-generated content a product has, the more sales it will get.
Thank you, Nick. And again, also to you as well. Thank you so much for your contribution to the panel today as well. Much appreciated. Michael, wrap it up for us. Talk about user-generated.
Yeah, I think to echo Nick, I think it's got to be easy. Absolutely, it's got to be simple. It can't be too complicated. Otherwise, they're never going to provide that information, and it's got to give some sort of value, really, as well. And going back to sort of the sharing aspect as well, I think it's sharing that in a sort of collaborating again in an effective and consistent way. It's just sharing that out consistently across the organization, and certainly as a company at Canto for on digital asset management, I mean, getting that, and certainly user feedback is such a critical thing as well. It's also getting the sort of case studies, the customer stories, advocacy, absolutely critical to growing based on use case and by region.
Thank you, sir. And again, thank you to you also for your time on the panel today. And thank you to Canto for the sponsorship of the event today as well. Always appreciated. Without sponsorship, we can't run the event. Simple as that. So thank you for making it happen. Time flies when you talk about digital marketing, it seems. So we have spent hopefully what's been a really valuable 45 minutes or so together. Thank you for staying with us, audience. First session of the day. So thanks for joining us, and be mindful, please. We do have one more session today from the Retail Bulletin, which starts at 12 noon UK time. And we are joined again by a great panel as well, which I'll be introducing then. But for now, thank you for joining us. Thanks again to my panelists, and I wish you a great rest of your morning. Thank you very much.